Hi, I'm Emily here at horticulture.co.uk. In today's short video, I'll be talking to you about tomato care. Tomatoes are the perfect fruit to learn the basics of gardening. Although buying tomatoes at the supermarket is very convenient, there is nothing like the taste of homegrown tomatoes, and the varieties are endless. Common varieties. Tomatoes are split into two categories, determinate and indeterminate. These terms refer to the growth habit of tomato plants. They essentially mean bush or vining tomatoes. Determinate tomatoes are often referred to as bush tomatoes. They're compact and ideal for patios. You won't need to prune them, so they're perfect for beginners. Look out for San Manzano and Roma. Indeterminate tomato varieties are vining plants that continue to extend in the length throughout the growing season. They will give you a slow and steady supply of tomatoes rather than one large harvest. They will need to be pruned and staked as they can grow up to 7 foot tall. Some popular varieties include Sun Gold, Beefsteak and Sweet Million. Sowing seeds and ongoing care. Growing tomato plants in the right conditions is vital. For the first 8 to 10 weeks, the seeds need to be sown indoors to get a long growing season. The best time of year to sow seeds will depend on where you are. Usually this is between March and April. This will give you plenty of time to grow the plants indoors initially and then plant them out in the soil outdoors once there's no risk of frost and they'll get a good amount of sunlight. Tomatoes need a constant temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius, so a nice sunny windowsill above a radiator is perfect. Sow tomatoes in well-draining, peat-free soil. You should see germination within 2 weeks. Once you see the first 2 sets of true leaves, repot your tomatoes. When repotting tomatoes, remove the lower leaves and plant them deep in the compost. Tomatoes grow roots from their stem. You can place your tomatoes outdoors when the risk of frost has passed. This is usually around May. I use a final pot that's around 20 litres. Your tomatoes will need staking, as fruits are heavy and can easily break the stems. I use bamboo canes. Pinch out side shoots as you see them, so the plant directs its energy into the fruit production. Do you need a greenhouse to grow tomatoes? Whether or not you need a greenhouse to grow tomatoes will depend on the type of tomatoes you want to grow and where you are. In the UK, the best place to grow tomatoes is in a greenhouse. This will most likely be in large pots. However, you can grow outside depending on the variety. Look for a variety called Outdoor Girl. This will grow well outside in England. However, you will need to be careful with blight. Feeding and watering. Tomatoes need watering regularly from the beginning to ensure they do not dry out. Container-grown tomatoes will be more prone to drying out than those planted directly outside. Start feeding tomatoes once the flowers appear. Use a high potash feed like Tomarite. Increase watering and feeding when tomato fruits form and get larger. If you are growing tomatoes under glass or in a greenhouse, the tomatoes will need watering daily on warm days to make sure the plants do not dry out. Harvesting. To harvest tomatoes, simply pick them off of the plant. Their vines and stems will break and you can pull these off with the tomato if you wish. Or you can just take the tomato straight off the plant. You can also use scissors or secateurs if you wish. Common problems. The most common cause of tomato issues is watering. Tomatoes, especially the ones grown in pots, need a lot of water and feeding. If you see tomatoes splitting or notice black patches, this is called blossom end rot. It's essentially when the calcium can't reach the plant properly due to a lack of water. Water tomatoes in the morning and at night during very hot spells. Another common disease affecting outdoor tomatoes is blight. Blight spreads by fungal spores that are carried by insects, wind and water from infected plants, and then deposit on the soil of your plants. The disease requires moisture to progress, so when dew or rain comes into contact with fungal spores in the soil, they reproduce. Remove all affected leaves as soon as you see them to slow down the spread. If your tomatoes aren't turning red, this may mean that it isn't warm enough for them. The warm nights stimulate the tomatoes to ripen, along with the sun. Move them indoors, into a greenhouse, or pick the tomatoes and place on a windowsill inside. Uses of tomatoes. Tomatoes are best eaten fresh, so I don't recommend freezing them. However, you can make a tomato sauce and freeze that. You can eat tomatoes raw, straight off of the plant, roast them or cook them. They're perfect in salads, on pizzas and in different sandwiches.